Hello YouTube, this is Travis Dunn,
And Doc Smith.
and today we're going to show our collection video of Origins Game Fair. It's an event that happens every year, usually in June, but the date does vary a little bit from year to year. This year it was the second week of June, and it happens every year at the Greater Columbus Convention Center.
And when we say it happens at the convention center, we mean it takes over the convention center. The entire thing, with the exception of a couple halls, is usually booked for this game fair, and they jam-pack as much gaming as they can into it.
Yeah, most of it is comprised of both the dealer hall and the main gaming hall, but smaller vendors and different people schedule different meeting halls and whatnot to bring in to run separate games and whatnot. This year was a little weird because we actually had a graduation, and I'm not sure if it was a college graduation or a high school graduation, but
I'm wanting to say if I remember the one that I talked to said that it was high school graduation, which was kind of odd. But yeah, there was a graduation going on at the game fair that day, at the convention center that day while the game fair was going on, I should say. So it was interesting to say the least. There you can see the mascot for Origins. And here we go into the main dealer hall now. The dealer hall in the biggest convention center exhibit hall is sectioned off for what they call the dealer room. And this room is where all sales transaction goes on. And the exchanging of money for product happens in this room and this room only. So this is where all the vendors set up shop and set up in, these alleyway style setups with aisles and sell anything and everything gaming related. You can see coming up here in a minute, Magic cards. Despite how long the game's been out, it's still going strong.
yeah, and you'll find Magic dealers pretty much scattered throughout the room, and me and Doc have actually said that they need to just make one aisle called
Magic Alley.
But whether you're an avid fan or a serious collector or just a casual player, there are some really nice deals to be had in the Magic category. You can usually get bulk sets of cards. You won't get ultra rares or anything like that, but you'll get a reasonable assortment. Sometimes 1,000 to 1,500 cards for less than $20 a box.
So it's a good way if you are just starting out building a collection to get an instant collection going for a relatively cheap price.
Yeah, it's much less expensive than buying packs and packs and packs of cards. And you also, Origins isn't just cards. It is board games. It is art. It is cosplay. It is miniatures, RPGs. There were even Legos. We can sort of see them here on the left, but I'll show pictures later in the video.
Pretty much anything in the realm of geek and nerddom can be found here at Origins. And they do a real nice job of trying to keep it not only current, but relevant for both the older adult gamers and the kids. I know that they do a lot of side games out in the rest of the convention center that's specifically set up just for the younger kids. And then in the dealer room here, it varies with year, but there are some years where there are large exhibits in the dealer room of games that are engineered for the little ones, and not just the adult collectors.
Yeah, and typically the ones you see out in the kind of scattered around, especially what I call the big and tall games, where they literally take a classic board game and turn it into like the monster. I think one year they did.
They've done a couple of different ones. One year they had a Car Wars setup where the Car Wars is typically played with the little Matchbox cars. They had like 2-foot long cars that they were using that year. They had one year, they had Star Trek Attack Wing. It was being shown off out in the hall.
They did
and they had
like a Settlers of Catan or something.
Yeah, they did a Settlers of Catan 1, and they had the Star Trek Attack Wing, where both of those were using like Bigfoot, foot and a half long starships to show off those games. So they like doing those blow up games to, obviously get your attention. You see something like that out there being played, you got to come up and look at it and see what's going on.
And you won't only just have your typical big maker card games, board games, and whatnot. You'll also have your independents here. One of our favorites, and there'll be some pictures here later, is Rather Dashing Games, which have extremely family friendly games, but are still challenging enough in strategy to make them interesting. So they're friendly for the whole family, and me and Doc every year have bought every one of their games. One of the principal owners is Grant Wilson, the same Grant Wilson that some of you may know from Ghost Hunters. And Doc has made it his personal.
My personal goal is to go to see Grant and his partner Mike every year at Origins until they recognize me and know me by name.
And for the most part, the guys at least usually recognize us every year. And we do make it a point to talk and chat with them as much as we can. And you won't find a couple of more friendlier guys to talk to.
Yeah, that first year that they were at Origins, we stood there, I know, for 40 minutes talking to them. And super nice, willing to talk about pretty much anything. Of course, they were super excited about the games that they were trying to sell that year. And like you said before, the games are really well put together and done. Really fun, and can't speak highly enough about them. Of course, we wish them all the success in the world because they make great stuff and they're great people.
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of sucked is the last couple of years. Prior to that, the last couple of years they had actually had their newest game available to purchase, but just because of timing and manufacturing and all that, the last couple of them they've only been able to preview on site and usually release around Gen Con, which is usually about a month or so later.
Yeah, unfortunately for the area, Gen Con is Gen Con's the biggest game convention in America. So, Origins being so close, Gen Con happens in Indianapolis. And of course, this is in Columbus. Pretty much a stone's throw away when you look at the U.S. as a whole. Means we kind of get eclipsed by Gen Con in a lot of places if they got to decide which one they're going to preview at. It's business sense. You're going to preview at the biggest convention you can, which is Gen Con.
And you'll see various vendors showing off their latest games, and sometimes they'll even just throw in some of their classic games because everybody enjoys playing them. But just for those of the uninitiated. And
that was a unique thing this year. There was a car in the middle of the convention hall, which is funny because this convention hall is typically used for the auto show every year too, so maybe it's just been sitting around since the auto show.
I believe they had a racing board game that they were showing off, and I think they were actually giving the car away as a raffle or something.
Yeah, they were giving the car away. Of course, it was a Honda. It was in a two-door Accord, I think.
No, Civic.
Was it a Civic?
It was a Civic.
And then it had the turbo kit and everything with it too. I didn't see what they were selling or giving it away for. You're probably right. There probably was a board game.
And then the Steve Jackson booth, which is always a bit of a favorite for us. It's another one of those games.
Munchkin.
Yeah.
Love Munchkin. And even though we haven't got to play it yet, Gloom is done through Steve Jackson Games too, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So, I haven't had a chance to play that one yet, but we've got a copy of it, and we've watched a couple of different uh, internet personalities play it, and it sounds like a cool game. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff at that booth that catches our eye every year. And of course, the apparel is a big thing for any convention, and Origins, you just saw, has a lot. And something cool about Origins, specific with the game convention, is all of the accessories. They've moved it out of the dealer room, but there's a Game Chic uh, dealer section that's been around for a couple of years now at Origins. They have these beautiful tables for playing games and stuff on, and they do the typical poker tables and stuff like that, but then they've got tables specifically designed for RPGs and everything, and they just do some beautiful work.
They're just so ridiculously expensive. I mean, it just, to me, it's way past the point of fine furniture. It's just...
Small tables can go $2,000-$3,000. Granted, it's worth it, but you still got to have that $2,000 or $3,000 to be able to afford it.
Now, that vendor there was actually kind of funny. It was a little hard to see in the video, but some of the prints were like video game oriented or RPG oriented type fabric that somebody made dresses and shirts and stuff out of. I think they even had like a Sonic and a Super Nintendo themed fabric that they used.
Yeah, definitely you will see anything and everything game and geek and nerddom related taken to the next level at this convention.
And if you're a miniatures player, you'll definitely enjoy the selection of miniatures. Now, it varies from year to year. This year was a little lighter on the miniatures than we had seen in past. But there's always a reasonable selection of miniatures if you're looking to add to your collection. And thank God that's something I've stayed out of.
Yeah, wanting to talk about expense.
Yeah, miniatures are so expensive.
And a common thing in the dealer room here is they'll set up demo areas so you can actually sit down and play the games and see how the games run and everything, and be an informed decision on what you're buying before you buy it. And some of the guys do a good job of selling their games. Others, a lot of times it's volunteer work, so you really gotta get the right people trying to preview these games to make the good sales. But it's still interesting because most everything you can sit down and try it out and see if you're actually going to like it before you put the money down to buy it.
I always enjoy looking, and you'll see one coming up here on the right. It's always got the, excuse me, that miscellaneous nerdum stuff. And one of the things we found, and I took a picture of it, is they had a collection of ships from Mass Effect, which, I absolutely love that game, all except for the 15 minutes in the last game. But that's a discussion for another video.
Across from the booth that he was talking about, something new that they've started doing the last couple of years at Origins is getting guests of honor come in. And the guests of honor this year was Sam Witwer, played Lieutenant Crashdown on Battlestar Galactica, and then Chloe Dykstra, whom is an internet nerd personality. We didn't get a chance to see them, but it's cool that they're starting to bring in people from the industry, or TVs and movies, and having them there. It's helping attendance a lot.
Yeah, and we're seeing pictures now of just some of the kind of random things that caught our eye that we took pictures of. You'll see everything from Legos to miniatures to we're seeing some cosplay stuff now. Swords and guns, which actually the guns looked really cool. The swords were kind of at this particular booth, but
you'll find that the quality sometimes varies with some of the stuff being sold.
Now there's one place that the leather section, which is leather-bound books. God, I'd love to purchase one of those. And then now we're seeing the Mass Effect collection, and I wanted to gobble it up, but it was just too expensive. And now we're seeing one of our favorite. There's Grant Wilson from Rather Dashing Games talking with somebody, and then now we see Matt here on the left.
Yeah, there's Mike.
Or Mike, yeah.
Yeah, it's Mike. And he's demoing the game for Taverns.
And we see a picture of one of the celebrities that came in.
Sam Witwer. Unfortunately, they want so much, it's hard to get up there to do any pictures with them.
And then we're seeing some of the cosplay, which one of our absolute favorites this year was the ODST guy. He had an incredible set of ODST armor.
Made it all himself, and as you can see, I mean, it was just phenomenally done.
There's some more pictures of people in cosplay. You see even some of the kids getting involved in it. These were another of Doc's favorites.
Yep. Tusken Raider and a Mandalorian.
And then we see
even though space this year was the theme, fantasy is a very common theme to have going on at Origins.
Someone wearing the red shirt. Now this one I wish was in focus. My son unfortunately took the picture, but we see somebody wearing the costume from the V series back in the late 80s, early 90s, something
late
like
80s.
that. Then we got Mario.
Specifically from Mario 3 with Golden Cape.
This was a set that I wish I'd gotten a better picture of. She was wearing a Storm costume, and then obviously he was Wolverine. So that is pretty much our video for Origins. It is an event we go to every year. So thank you very much, and have a great day.